there's a GDAX API, and they have a WebSocket that you can connect to, and we can get some data from there. So if you don't know what GDAX is, well, basically we got it up here. GDAX is one of the major platforms for the GDAX exchange for looking at all the orders and trade history and the trends and everything for Bitcoin. And so what we're going to do in this session is basically get the US dollar evaluation for Bitcoin, and we'll be getting that inside of an Android app, and we'll be placing it on a text view, and this will be updated live since it's a WebSocket. And so we can start here. So I'm basically gonna just start a new project. So file, new. So I actually started developing this app, and I'm like, hey, this might be something cool to do live. So that's what I'm gonna do. So for the application name, we'll just call it GDAX test, and we'll just go through next, empty activity, choose that, next, and finish. This is just doing the basic setup, setting activity main, and well, for a web-based app, the first thing we need to do is add the internet permission. So go into the Android manifest.xml. Under the manifest tag, do uses permission, and then we're using the internet permission, android.permission.internet, and we can close that tag right there. So now we have the appropriate permission to go to the web. So the next thing we want to do, since the GDAX, they have a WebSocket, and a WebSocket is really nice because you can connect to it, and then you can stay connected to it and get live data. You can send information to the WebSocket, to the server, and the server can send information back to the client. So it's a very good way for doing live updates and stuff like that. And the way they have it set up is where you send up JSON to the server, and they'll send you back JSON. JSON is just a way to represent an object, which is mainly developed in JavaScript. It's used a lot in JavaScript because you can convert an object directly to a JSON string very, very easily in JavaScript, and it was originally developed for JavaScript. And so it uses JSON, and what we're going to do is send up different subscribe. Well, in this part one, we're just going to be sending up one subscribe request, and it's going to look like this. Here's the request. You see type, subscribe, channels, name, heartbeat. So the heartbeat will get you the latest trades, but what we want to use is ticker, which is talked about up here, ticker, and the ticker will give us the latest price of Bitcoin live, and it will continue sending us that price data. Now what I want to show you is that we can actually connect this WebSocket from anything really. So I'm typing in WebSocket connect online, going to this jfiddle script here, and here you can see it has the WebSocket URL right there. What we're going to do is we're just going to copy the WebSocket URL, which is up here, and this is a WSS, which means it's secure, WebSocket secure. If it's WS, then it's just normal WebSocket. If it's WSS, then it uses SSL, and it's secure. So, which means messages are encrypted. Alright, so we can paste this into the WebSocket URL area for this JavaScript script. I guess press update and then run. So it shows that we're connected to that WebSocket. And so if you send anything like, just a character or something, it will send you a response from the server that says it's malformed JSON. And so we send JSON up to the server. And I'm going to just copy, I'm going to show you two different requests, or maybe three. I'm going to mess with the order book. I'm going to see if that works. I actually haven't messed with that yet, but first we'll do this one. So from Ether to Euro, let's change that to BTC, Bitcoin, to USD, the US dollar. And this is doing the heartbeat. And I'm going to press enter. And now you can see that we're getting a heartbeat from the server, and it says last trade ID. So it gives you your last trade ID and the time. And so this is something that we could look into messing with later, but right now we're not going to mess with this subscription. So I'm going to refresh the page. It's connected. I'm going to paste this in again. And instead of heartbeat, we're going to do ticker. So we're going to type in TICKER, press enter, and now you can see that we're receiving from the GDAX server, part of the JSON that it's sending us is the latest price. So you can see this says 10.910.94, which is similar to what it's saying here. It updates all the time, so you know it can be a little bit different. But so that's the ticker, and that's what we're going to be using. I do want to check one more thing. I want to see if we can do the order book stuff, which would be in a later video. But I want to see if I can. I want to see what type of data it sends, or if there's something else that I need to send it. So I'm going to do this, level 2. So this is associated with the order book. So channels, name, instead of heartbeat, I'm changing this to level 2. I'm going to press enter. Oh wow. Oh boy. Yep, okay. Too much stuff. It's freezing up the browser. That's a lot of order book information. Since we're using a WebSocket, we want to use the Java WebSocket library for Android. So what we're doing here, this is the github.com/tutalnate java-websocket. Gonna add this compile into our build.gradle. We're gonna add it in to the dependencies, and then also in the build.gradle script for the repository, we'll need to add Maven Central. So add Maven Central to the repositories in the other build.gradle script. So now we can sync the project. So now I'm going to set up a couple methods. The first method will be public void init WebSocket. And then another one will be public void subscribe. And the subscribe will just send up that JSON data to tell it to subscribe to the ticker, which is what I was talking about earlier. So we're going to have a WebSocket client object, a global one. And this WebSocket client will equal to new WebSocket client, and what this takes in is a URI, and so we'll create that URI right here. URI GDAX URI equals new URI. So we're creating this URI object. We need to pass in the URL inside of it. So I'm going to make a constant string, which is the GDAX WS for WebSocket URL equals to this URL that's mentioned in the API reference. And I'll have all this stuff in the description. We're taking this WebSocket URL, WebSocket secure. We're going to copy that, and we're just going to paste it inside our constant string. Alright, and then in the URI we're passing the GDAX WebSocket URL. This throws an exception, so we need to surround it with a try and catch. And now we pass in the GDAX. Okay, we're going to pass in the GDAX URI. So I'm going to take this outside of the try catch, so it's in our scope, set it to null, and then do that. Change this to GDAX URI. And now we got this constructor set up. Add a semicolon at the end of it. And now we're going to need, since we're doing a WebSocket secure, it requires a SSL factory. SSL server socket factory. I think it's just SSL socket factory. Socket factory equals SSL socket factory dot get default. That's probably what we need here. And then we cast it to SSL socket factory. SSL socket factory. Okay. And so now we have the default socket factory. This is just required to connect over SSL. And so what we're going to do here is WebSocket client.set socket, and then put in the socket factory. It's factory. Since it's the factory, we need to create the socket, so it's not fully created. And then we're going to have to surround this with try catch because it throws an exception. Surround with try catch. Alright. And then we can do WebSocket client.connect. And now we should be connected to the WebSocket feed for GDAX. And let's put a tag up here, and we can do some logging. Final string tag equals, let's just set it to GDAX. Okay, and then on open, we'll log that it's open. Or tag, and then on open, on message, and let's actually show the message. So we'll just do a plus message, and then finally, last but not least, on close. So on close could be if the session ended, or if the server closed the connection, or something like that. And finally, the on error, we can just do e.print stack trace so we can see the error. So that logs to the console. So from onCreate method, we're going to call the init WebSocket. We're going to run this. Now we should get our logs. GDAX logs. Okay. And here you can see it showed on open. Since we haven't subscribed to anything, we're not getting any messages from the WebSocket. So that's the next thing to do. Subscribe to the WebSocket. Subscribe to the ticker on the WebSocket. So inside of the subscribe method, we'll do WebSocket client.send, and then we're just going to send the subscription text. And I'm just going to copy the text here from the API and change it to the ticker. WebSocket client.send, I'm going to just paste this in, and then I'm going to change it from Ether to Euro, once again to BTC to USD, and from heartbeat to ticker. And so that's subscribing to the ticker feed on the WebSocket, on the server. And so what we want to do is subscribe as soon as we're connected to the WebSocket. So in the onOpen method, if we don't if we send a send method and it's not connected, it's going to throw an exception. So subscribe inside of the WebSocket on open. And I just want to show you, I'll run it real quick and show you that it's going to give us the messages from the ticker. So here you can see we're getting the latest price on message, and you can see that there's a price tag right here. It shows 10,964.57, and so that's the current price of Bitcoin on the GDAX exchange. And now what we can do is get that JSON object and display it. So in the onMessage method, string message is the JSON string. So Java has a JSON object library. So JSON object equal, well, set it to null at first, and then we'll be setting it to the message. So JSON object equals new JSON object, and what you do is pass in the JSON string. Okay, and this also throws an exception, a JSON exception if it's not properly formatted. So let's just do a try catch, then we'll say if the JSON object is not equal to null, then we'll do stuff with it. So let's do string for the price equals JSON object dot get string, and then all you do is put in price right here. And so that will grab this little price tag right here that we see in the logs. And this also throws an exception, so there's a lot of these exceptions that can be thrown. Alright, so inside of the price, in the try catch, we could just put it inside of here. So this, what we want to do now is update the UI, but we're in the WebSocket thread, which is not a UI thread, and we need to be in the UI thread in order to update the UI. And so what you do is you type run on UI thread, which is from the activity class. Run on UI thread is a method of the activity class that allows you to jump threads from a normal thread to a UI thread, and it takes in a runnable object. And so inside of the runnable, we can do find view by ID, r.id dot, let's see, what we need to set an ID for the little hello world box right here. So go to XML, we're gonna add an ID, Android ID, at plus ID equals price text. So I'm doing price underscore text, r.id dot price underscore text, and we need to cast this to a text view, since by default find view by ID gets view and not text view. So text view is extending view in Android. All the views extend view. So then set text to price, and here we are. That will update the UI. One thing I want to do before we do that, the text size. Okay, I'm gonna change it to like 50 dp. Oh, okay. Yeah, SP instead of DP. That's what SP for text. And what does that look like? So that's pretty big. Let's just run it on the phone or on the emulator and see what it looks like. And we'll also bring up that. Alright, here we are, 10964.02. You can see that it's basically the same. One of them is updating slower than the other. So, you can see that the prices are pretty much exact. But that's really all I wanted to do in this session. In a later session, we can do stuff with the order book, which we were looking at earlier, which caused the browser to freeze up when I subscribe to that order book feed. So it's a lot of data that comes at you. And it looks like actually this website's running a little bit slow right now. So, but you can see the price is syncing with each other. The only thing I've noticed is that the WebSocket can close if it's not receiving any. It closes after a certain amount of time, so we'll need to do something to keep it awake, which is something I'll do in a later video on this series. Thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of the day.